Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of this weekend's mega rematch, Mikaela Mayer says, "This time, I am going to make the scorecards even wider. I want to remove all doubts." Mikaela Mayer said, "This time I'm going to make the scorecards even wider. I want to remove all doubt." Another fight week has begun for Mikaela Mayer, but for the first time since October of 2022, she walks into the ring as a defending world champion. Mayer will have a rematch with former champion Sandy Ryan this coming weekend in Vegas, a first defense of her WBO title, a prestigious bauble that has given life and more to a career that had stagnated somewhat since that painful night at the O2 Arena in London against Baumgartner. "It's pretty crazy," Mayer told me over Zoom. 2 years is a long time in a career that has a clock. I had fights that I wasn't inspired for. While I waited for the big fights to come, it was really hard. I didn't realize how depressed I was, but I got the belt back and now I'm back on top. But it's not just that, my hope is back as well. I was clinging to hope, but I had to keep convincing myself. But getting that belt back has reminded me how good a fighter I am, what a good hustler I am as well. That win over Ryan last September was a full circle moment, a decision that finally and deservedly went her way. I have such an appreciation for my journey and everything that I went through, a reflective Mayer says of those tough last few years. I've been at my lowest and I've learned how resilient I am, mentally resilient, not just physically. I realized I've always been that way. It's a good job that I grew up with a lot of toxicity around me and I can handle it, but I know some people can't. You have to have that mindset. People have asked, have I ever thought of quitting? But I know how to handle all the ups and downs. I've never been that way. I always knew I would get it done at some point. I always knew I would be a world champion again. I have nothing to lose now. I have everything to gain. For me, boxing is my therapy. Mayer says of the sport that gives her so much. I feel my best when I am at the height of my training camp. I will worry about myself after I retire, and I don't have boxing as that therapy, and it's not there to pull me back in and ground me. It's in between training camps where I struggle mentally. I need something to push for. I thrive on stress. I thrive on having a lot to do. I thrive on having a lot of pressure. That reminds me of what retirement would feel like. A lot goes into the sport and competing at this level because it's not enough to win a belt. You have to keep it. You have to defend it. And so Mikaela Mayer will be defending the WBO title against former WBO champion Sandy Ryan. And I anticipate she will keep the WBO title. She will win the second fight. I think that Sandy is a good fighter, but still greener, comparatively greener than Mikaela, and not as adaptable. Sandy's got more of a one-track mind, where Mikaela can make adjustments ahead of a fight and in a fight. I feel with Kofi in my corner now, I am learning so much. I knew my career wasn't on the decline. I knew I hadn't done everything I wanted to do in boxing, but the boxing world around me kind of got in my head a bit, and I was thinking, was this it? The negative thoughts were getting in, but I wasn't done. The height of my career wasn't beating Hamadouche, so I had to keep that mindset even though there were days I didn't believe it. But when I beat Sandy, I proved to myself that I was right. I wasn't done. Now, I have a better team, and I think the sky is the limit. I think the next chapter is going to be even better than the first one. Now that I have the belt back, I don't just want to sit there and protect it, Mayer relayed to Fight Post. This is a tough division, but I welcome that. I wouldn't want anything less. I took the option that was the most challenging for me. Win, lose, or draw in Vegas, Mikaela Mayer has had some career. It is in many ways a quite remarkable story. At some point in the future, there is surely a book in her, a story of perseverance if ever there was one, the resilience that has more than paid off for her. All the frustrations of the last 2 years are now gone. Mayer can now look forward and not look back. Mayer has bet on herself many times in her career. After leaving the amateur ranks behind in 2016, Mayer was nearly lost to boxing until Bob Arum, the lucrative professional contract, wasn't initially forthcoming. I've been very lucky, Mayer says of her career so far. I have a great promoter, I have a great team, and I've been fighting regularly. But I would say if it wasn't going that way, I wouldn't be wasting my time. I have always been a hustler, and I've always wanted to be financially stable. After the Olympics, I knew I had to do something different. I couldn't stay as an amateur making that kind of money. I was 26 years old. I had to take a risk. I had to go and make some money. But it wasn't initially working out. And that's why I was thinking about switching over to MMA to sign with Bellator. A lot of athletes continue to chase the dream, even if that dream isn't working. If I was still struggling to get signed, I would have redirected my path. But I got signed to Top Rank, and they've been really taking good care of me. You can't sit around waiting forever. You have to go out and make a living. And so she has. I anticipate she will make a successful defense of the WBO title this weekend. And even if she doesn't, she has a rematch clause going in. Unlike in the Baumgartner fight and the Jonas fight. She's got that covered, though I don't think she's going to need to exercise it. I anticipate that Mikaela and Sandy are going to pick up where they left off in round 1, and it won't take long for things to heat up. But as stated, Mikaela is a more malleable fighter, more adaptable than Sandy Ryan. Sandy's likely going in there looking for a knockout, not a decision. She's looking to land big, where Mikaela will be more strategic at times, boxing from the outside and banging on the inside, alternating. I anticipate overall, Mikaela will show the better boxing, and that will win her the fight. That's what won her the first fight. That's what I think is going to win her the second. Now let's see if the prediction sticks.
And I know that obviously one of the names that has been kind of like in pursuit of you, and I've literally seen you answer multiple questions about this guy, but there was something about the way David Benavidez was pursuing a fight for you with you. And it seemed like it was maybe annoying to you. But what aspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what aspect of his approach kind of rubbed you the wrong way?
You know, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer this question, but I think the way he talk, he think he's Superman, right? And he is very disrespect, not just with me, with everybody. And he's accomplished nothing. He's not even a champion. And he's not even in my weight class already. And, you know, it's a lot of things there doesn't make sense. And plus, at this point in my career, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. And I agree. So now,
and you guys can take anything away from my career, from my legacy, for anything. Because not, you know, if you see my resume, I fought everybody out there. All the elite fighters out there. So I'm very good with my resume.
Is that the way it is? Was being disrespectful towards Canelo Alvarez what ultimately costed David the fight? I don't think it was just that. I don't think it was just that by itself. I think that a part of what costed David the fight was not unifying titles with Caleb Plant when they were both champions. I think that's a big part of it, so that by the time Canelo comes down from the Kovalev fight down to 168, and he starts that undisputed run, he would have had to go see David for at least 2 of the 4 major titles. Had he fought Caleb then, and beat him then, and had both the WBC and IBF titles,
I think Canelo would have fought him.
but when you dick around and squander that opportunity, worse, you lose your own title, there's no incentive for Canelo to make you a priority, and the disrespect.
You say that being disrespectful is what got Erislandy Lara the fight, so why didn't it get David the fight?
Consider that Canelo was a much younger man and a much younger fighter when he took the bait with Erislandy Lara, so that by the time a David Benavidez starts piping up and he's disrespectful, Canelo knows what you're doing, and he's not going to give you the satisfaction because you haven't accomplished anything, but you act like you have.
Because here you have a guy who was already more accomplished than you are, coming into your division, still doing all the heavy lifting, getting all of these champions in the ring, one after the other, so that after all the smoke settles, you think you're just gonna waltz in, having accomplished nothing while being disrespectful to the guy who has.
This is sometimes how boxers punish each other, not dissimilar from Keyshawn Davis saying that he wouldn't even fight Teofimo Lopez because at this point, Teofimo needs him.
For all the racist stuff that Teofimo's been saying, Keyshawn said he wouldn't even entertain him. He wouldn't fight him. He wouldn't give him the satisfaction.
It's the same with Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper. Why didn't their rematch happen? The story was that things were said behind the scenes to where Natasha wouldn't even entertain her. She wouldn't fight her for a second time. The disrespect was too much.
And remember, that would have been for undisputed at junior middleweight. Tasha had 3 of the belts and Terry had the last one, but Natasha would hear none of it. She wouldn't give Terry the satisfaction.
That's what I think is going on here between Canelo and David. The disrespect is to the point that Canelo knows he can hurt David even more by not fighting him.
And I think it's working, because if you think about David's situation at light heavyweight and these backdoor shenanigans, these backdoor politics with the WBC, you can go as far as having a title emailed to you. But even if that happens, so what? Who are you going to fight? How are you going to make money?
You've outgrown 168. You had to move to 175. But now what you're saying is you don't want to go to Saudi.
The disrespect.
Samson Lukowicz saying he won't kiss the rings and he would never want to go to Saudi while they're trying to dictate terms to Dimitri Bivol.
The disrespect.
Dictate terms to the guy who beat Canelo. Beat Zerto, who you're also eyeing. Beat Artur Beterbievi's undisputed champion. And you're going to try to tell him where you should fight. Under what banner?
The disrespect.
That's the disrespect that Canelo is talking about. That's the disrespect I see. Who do you think you are? Now, as a boxing fan, I would have preferred to see Canelo take care of this. I would have preferred to see Canelo take care of this guy because I think he can. But sometimes this is what postmodern boxers do. When they really want to hurt a guy, they don't fight him. They don't give him the satisfaction.
They starve him.
Not saying I like it or the fans are supposed to like it, but sometimes that's what it is.
That's why.
Men's heavyweight news. Former champion Deontay Wilder is set to return June 27th versus Tyrell Herndon.
Who?
Former heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder will return June 27th in the 10-round fight versus Tyrell Herndon in Wichita, Kansas. Promoters Nelson Lopez and Joshua Chase of the Global Combat Collective told ESPN on Friday.
Where have I heard that before?
The Global Combat Collective, Nelson Lopez, I think that used to be Alicia Baumgartner's manager, and the Global Combat Collective are the ones who won the purse bid for the Delphine Pursoon fight. They're the ones who had Alicia fighting in an event that was closed to the public. That's where you may have heard that before, the Global Combat Collective. Wilder, 39, has only won one of his past 5 fights. He was brutally knocked out by heavyweight contender Zhilei Zhang in June, and prior to that was routed by former champion Joseph Parquier over 12 rounds. Wilder, 43-4-1 with 42 knockouts, is regarded as one of the heavyweight division's most fearsome punchers ever. His championship trilogy with Tyson Fury was memorable. Despite going 0-2 with 1 draw, Wilder floored Fury twice in each of the first and third meetings. In the second bout, Wilder was stopped in round 7. Now Wilder will look to notch his first win since October of 2022, a first-round knockout of Robert Helenius. With this fight against Herndon, a 37-year-old journeyman from San Antonio with a record of 24-5, 15 knockouts, Herndon has won 3 fights since a second-round TKO loss to Olympic silver medalist Richard Torres in October of 2023. Herndon's last fight was a 6th-round split decision in May of last year. This is Wilder's legacy reloaded. He's still one of the hardest punchers in boxing, Chase said. He's on the road back to becoming heavyweight champion of the world, and this is the first step.
Now, what they might be thinking to themselves is that Oleksandr Usyk is on the cusp of retiring and vacating the remaining titles he still holds, at which point Wilder might try to pick one up. If this really is one last hoorah, one last world title run, that might be the motivation, that Usyk is about to retire, the belts are about to be fragmented again. But think about who Wilder would have to go through to get those belts, since there are already mandatories in the queue.
Joseph Parker already beat you. He's the mandatory challenger via the WBO. Via the WBA, a badly aged Kubrat Pulev is installed, but he's about to fight Fabio Wortley, and Fabio is likely going to beat him.
At which point, he'll become the guy closest to becoming WBA champion.
Agit Kabayel is the WBC's interim champion, most in line to become full champion if and when Usyk retires. And I don't think Wilder beats Agit Kabayel. I don't think Wilder beats Fabio Wortley, and he already got beat by Joseph Parker. So what if this is intended to be is the beginning of another world title run? It ain't gonna work out.
What about the IBF?
Daniel Dubois is IBF champion, and at this point, I think Daniel steamrolls Deontay Wilder. I think he plows right through him and takes him out, just like Zhilei Zhang did. So, like I said, if this is supposed to be another world title run, it ain't gonna work out.
They're just trying to get Wilder back in the winner's bracket with this Tyrell Herndon fight, and he might win it. He might knock this guy out.
At which point, he might have to look elsewhere for big opportunities, not necessarily on the world title scene in that stage, but perhaps a novelty fight with Francis Ngannou. Maybe he can do that. Or maybe they can revisit an Anthony Joshua fight. We know that the both of their careers are winding down. And if Wilder can come back with a highlight reel knockout over Tyrell Herndon, maybe that's a conversation they can have. Joshua versus Wilder.
I think it still does good business if you put it together. I think you can still sell it. Obviously, it's not everything that it was when they were both unbeaten and they were both champions, and it would have been for undisputed. But I think if you tell people Anthony's gonna fight Wilder, they'll tune in, they'll watch it.
I think that's Deontay's best bet to be in a big, meaningful fight at this point in his career. 39 years old. The clock is obviously winding down. There's not much sand left in the hourglass.
What else is interesting is that he's not back at the PBC on Prime,
And it doesn't look like he wants to go back. It's been a long time since he fought under that banner, and it looks like he's not going to close out his career with them.
all the money they costed him.
He'd rather take his chances with the lesser known and less experienced Global Combat Collective on Black Prime.
In Wichita, Kansas. Odd place to stage a boxing match. They about to have Deontay Wilder fighting in a cornfield?
Wichita, Kansas is not exactly known as a boxing town.
But that's where this is supposed to be going down. Wilder versus Herndon in Wichita.
Because it's on Black Prime, you know this is probably going to be a pay-per-view.